Hey guys, this tutorial is going to cover iridescent materials in Redshift and how to make them. So we actually can use iridescent materials for thin film effects, holographic type of looking effects, bubbles, pearlescent car materials, and actually let's change the color space to something a little different, something like ACES, so the color is a little nicer. Or actually, no, let's go filmic medium, and so yeah, now that we've got a decent color space going, I'll be explaining basically the process of making this, and there's a couple nodes you can use to get around to making it. In different apps, you don't have access to one of these nodes, so I'll explain the other method. I'm sure there's similar nodes, but in Maya, the node's a little different. So, alright, so let's get started. And so, let's start an IPR. And we're going to just start from scratch. So we're going to just make a new shader for all of this stuff. And we'll use a car shader for the metal first, and the bubble we'll make a different material. So let's start with just a Redshift material. And we'll move the hypershade up front for now. So we'll call this, let's wipe that clean, graph the new material, and we'll give this a name of, I don't know, car paint, Erie for iridescent. And so first step is we're going to want to make this. Actually, no, this isn't a car paint. We'll my mistake. We're going to use a car paint shader. Not the. You could do the same thing though with the Redshift material, but since this is simplified, we'll actually just use this and call this the car paint. And so right now we've got it just doing. Let's crop this out. So right now it's just a basic orange material, nothing really exciting going on. And let's actually tweak the car paint shader a little bit. So you can change the input color to whatever you want. Right now it's on orange. Let's do something different. Let's try like a purple. It's kind of cool. And the weight controls the weight, obviously, of the car paint shader, so off is off. We'll keep it at 0.5, or let's try 0.75. And your edge fall off, this is basically kind of like the fernell. So if we turn this on, you get the fernell effect going on. And so if you change the curve factor up or down, see it adjusts the off. Is going down, it's actually adding it everywhere, and going forward, it's getting rid of it, so it's only really subtle on the edges. And let's just have a really small amount. And you could do some really cool things with this too. You could actually pipe in a ramp, or I don't know, get creative, and you can get some neat effects on the color fall off. But let's just go all the way, and just so it's a really subtle effect on the edges. And the base layer specular, so this lets you tweak the specular, how strong you want it. And actually, we're going to just turn this off, so that way we don't have it getting in the way right now. And so you can change your BRDF to GGX or something else. We'll use GGX just because it's nicer for metals. And you can adjust the glossiness, the weight. So weight, obviously, specular is going to be stronger. We'll keep this stock. This is all fine stock. Facing reflectivity of the fernell effect. You know, we'll just leave all this stock. This is fine. Then you have metal flakes. So this lets you adjust the flake that you would see underneath the paint. The flakes, the density, the size, the color, stuff like that. And so we'll actually Let's zoom in to our object a little bit so we can get a little nicer view. And so we'll actually maybe increase the scale. And the scale is relative to your scene and your object, so this might have to get pretty big. Let's see, starting to see them a little bit in there. Let's try 3. Yeah, so now you can start seeing them. They're these little like dots, and let's make these pretty glossy, so they're nice and sharp. And we'll increase the facing reflectivity. So let's zoom out a little. Perpendicular. Let's see, increase the density. So yeah, we're starting to get them up here. You can start seeing them. And variation's fine, I guess. Let's decrease the scale a little too big. Yeah, so now we got some smaller ones here and there. Just increase the density a little more. And so let's rotate around, see how it's looking. Let's make the IPR a little bigger. And yeah, we got them going on right here in these areas. So cool. Let's tweak the curve factor. Okay, distance. No, that's fine. Variation's fine. Okay, yeah, this is good enough. We've got a little bit of flakes going on. It's a cool purple, shiny purple type of color. And let's actually hide all these. So we'll just group them and hide them for now. And let's start working on this. So let's get back in there. And so now that we've got our base material that we're gonna want to add the iridescence to, it's good to go. The iridescent effect is going to be basically happening in the clear coat because it's a thin film basically, and that's what clear coat is. It's a thin layering on top of the object. And so here is where you're going to pipe it in. You're not going to pipe it into the color because you still want the thin film to reflect white. So you're going to actually open up advanced and oh no, yeah, inside the color. It's actually, yeah, that's where it goes. I'm thinking of the RS material that has the advanced section. And basically, now that we've got this, we can turn on the weight a little higher, and you'll see how it affects it. See, so now we're getting a thin film. It's a little more reflective everywhere. And so now you're wondering, okay, how do I, make this iridescent? So let's move this to the side for now and open up our hypershade. And so to get this effect going, we need to either create a new ramp, or I already have one built, so I'll just drag it in. And I'll make another one just so we can go through it. But this ramp basically has some colors I already added. So depending on the colors you want for the iridescence, you can customize this to your liking. And the node that's important here is the Samplerinfo node. So you just type in, tab Samplerinfo. And with this node, there's this facing ratio output, and how this works is basically relative to where the camera is located, it adjusts the ramp that you're going to be feeding. And so that's how iridescence works. It's a thin film that changes due to the refraction of the light, and so that it's relative to your viewing angle. And so this is a way to simulate this. Now you could also do this, and this is how I would do it. This is a Maya only node. So in other apps, you could actually do this with fernell node. So the Redshift fernell. And this is in all the other apps. I'm sure the other apps have something similar to this, so we'll do it both ways. And I'll just leave this node over here for now. And so I prefer the look of this one. Technically, this is the proper, more realistic way, but I think this one gives you a little more control and it just looks a little nicer. And so now that we've got that going, the Samplerinfo node, our Redshift fernell, and our ramp. This I'll swap it in place of this later so you can see the differences. And basically what you want to do is you click on this white dot, you'll get the facing ratio, and you're going to feed it into the V. Since this is a ramp, it's a V ramp, we're going to feed the information of the camera viewing angle into V. And so basically now, depending on the way your camera's facing ratio is relative to the object, it's going to feed info into the V ramp and move around the ramp color gradient. And so then to get this information now into our clear coat, you need to actually make a different node to convert this ramp into something that the clear coat can use, and you could tweak. So a remap HSV. You don't have to make this, but I mean, I think it's a good idea, just because this gives you a little more control of the saturation, the value, and if you want to shift the hue anywhere. So we're going to feed this into the color, and then this output is then going to go into your clear coat color. So as soon as we plug that in, you'll notice that we're getting now this this color shifting going on the edges. And so what's going on is basically the clear coat now is the color is being fed information by the viewing angle and by this ramp that we made earlier. And so again, you could tweak this ramp to be something else, so I'll make another one in a little bit. But and then you have this remap that you could then tweak the values, so if you want to increase the saturation or decrease it or whatever. And now that we've got that going, let's turn this into GGX, just because GGX is nicer. And then you have glossiness, and then you have the fernell facing reflectivity. And so if you increase this, basically you're going to get a stronger effect as you're facing directly into it. And then perpendicular is the strength on the edges. So if I turn this off, now it's not as strong on the outside. And so if you slide this up more, you know, you're going to get full blown crazy. The ramp's going to be just taking over the material underneath. And so let's keep this a little subtle. This is pretty cool. Let's try 0.4, 0.35. Yeah, so this is pretty neat right here. And so if we rotate around, the colors are going to shift positions basically depending on our viewing angle. And the color pattern that we're getting is relative to our ramp. So here's the blue line, and we got the purple, and then the green on the edges is on the edges on both sides. So if I change this green to like orange, for example, it's no longer green right there and stuff. And so again, like I said, you could tweak this ramp to be whatever color you want. And so, you know, you could pull up some reference of some bubbles or oil or beetle bug shell or whatever that has iridescence and match specifically the colors that you need. You know, the iridescence doesn't have to be a full-on rainbow. It could be only a couple colors that are doing all that iridescent effect. And so now that we've got this going, we can tweak the shader a little more. So if we want, I don't know, a little more roughness or something like that, let's or if you want the whole material to be super glossy, you know, so now it's like a really perfectly sharp material, but we don't want it that sharp. Let's go 0.3. And the clear coat, you can adjust this also. So if I drop this down, you see now it's more of a diffuse, rough, iridescent effect, and you know, we don't want that either. So we're gonna bring this up to, I don't know, maybe 0.8, 0.9, 0.95. Yeah, so that's cool. And then you could also adjust, like I said, the facing reflectivity. So if we drop this down, maybe 0.2. Oh yeah, 0.3 was pretty good. 3.5. And you adjust the curve factor. And this is something that's really subtle, but you see, it influences the curve, how steep. I'm assuming the change from facing to perpendicular. And so if it's all the way over here, it's like super strong. If it's all the way over here, it's a little more subtle. And we'll just keep it at, I don't know, let's try 1, 2. Yeah, 2's cool. And so there we go. Now we've got our iridescent, funky, metallic material, you know. And again, if you want to adjust this so it's not as strong, you could drop the weight on it a little bit. See, and so if we turn it all the way off, it's, you know, we're back down to our original car shader material. And so let's actually change the glossiness. I actually want the base to be pretty glossy. Let's go with like a 0.9. And let's increase this a little bit now. And so if you want it to be more of a subtle thing, you could just adjust the clear coat weight to be a little subtle. We'll go with 0.8. No, that's a little strong. 0.6. Yeah, so 0.6. 0.6 is cool. And so there we go. Now we got our iridescent car material. And you can always change the color. So if we want to go with a bright green or something, might be a little too strong. You know, there we go. Or if you want to go with some other color, a blue, like a teal. So this lets you just, you know, to customize it to however you want to do it, really. I mean, infinite options and potential. But we'll stick with this purple. I like how this looks. And so now we're going to use this exact same ramp that we made with this. So this same ramp and this same Samplerinfo and this same remap. Oh, and speaking of the remap, just so you can see kind of what you can do with it, let's adjust this. So if I drop the saturation, you see it desaturates the effect, the colors that are being fed by the ramp. And so of course you could do that with the values. You know, there's just different things you could do with it. Drop this down. And so yeah, there's plenty of things you can do with it. And this just is an extra added layer of control. And so we're going to reuse all this. So we have all this right here, and we're going to actually make the bubble shader with it. And so let's turn on our bubbles again, and we're going to assign a Redshift material this time instead of the car paint material. And so now we've got these just plain old Redshift gray material going on. and we want to make these transparent and also iridescent. So quick way to get just transparent right out of the gate is just use like the glass shader or water or something. Water's pretty good for this. And so now we've already got, you know, clear, transparent materials. And so bubbles aren't solid. Right now this is on, like if this was a solid mass of water. And so we actually want to turn on thin walled, and that'll affect the look. And so now it's like it's a thin object rather than being a solid bubble full of water or a solid piece of glass. Now it's just the outside. And so right now, you know, we're getting a little bit of reflection from down here, but this isn't actually iridescence. That's just a reflection. And so to turn on iridescence for this object, now we're going to go all the way to the bottom. And the same thing we did with the car paint shader. Under coding, we have a couple options. And so we're going to first just turn on the weight on the coating, just so we can get some strong, nice white highlights going on. We can use GGX, and you could increase or decrease the roughness, but we don't want roughness. We want these nice highlights going on. And so here we have the advanced section. The car paint shader didn't have this section. And actually this is the one I was looking for earlier, but I mistaked it for the RS material. And so in the transmittance is where we're going to feed our ramp information. So we're going to go grab this, and we're going to pipe this out into transmittance. And now that the ramp is fed into the transmittance, we have, you know, the iridescence now working on the bubbles. And so it's a little saturated. I'm going to drop the saturation just a tad. So let's drag this down to, I don't know, something like that. Maybe a little lower. And to influence, see, right now it's affecting everything a little too much. And so to change the how it's working is you adjust the thickness. And so if we change this to 0.05, it's not affecting the entire object. So if we go up the other way, you know, if we go to 2, yeah, see, it's totally overpowering this. So let's go with the 0.08 maybe. 0.04. Yeah, 0.04 is cool. This is fine. Let's bring up the saturation just a tad. And yeah, there we go. So now we've got our bubbles and our car paint shader. And if we rotate around the scene, you know, it's influenced by the viewing angle. Whoa. And yeah, so let's 1-to-1 this. Let's zoom in. And let's do an actual render. So let's pause this. Let's do a real render. Blow this up a little. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. So now our little bubbles have, you know, a little bit of iridescence going on. And so the this is one way of doing it. So this was using the Samplerinfo node. And now that we did it this way, like I said, this is a Maya only node. So another way of approaching this in another app is to use the Fernell node. So the Redshift Fernell node. And now that we've got this saved out, so we could swap to this image. the fernell node, we're gonna, instead of using the facing ratio information, we're gonna use the fernell node to control the way the ramp is working, being applied on the materials. So let's take this out and feed that into here. And so let's load up IPR. And so already, let's actually, yeah, that should be just fine. So now that we have this going on, the fernell node can be used to do a lot of other neat effects, so like silk, stuff like that. But for now, we're just going to focus on iridescence using the fernell node. When you have the fernell node selected, there's the use index of refraction settings, the facing color, the perpendicular color, stuff like that. And so one way of using this is to actually have it piped in to these slots. So actually I did this wrong. It's let's take this out. You're gonna feed this, the output, into the facing color. And so now we're gonna put the output back into the same slots. So for the let's do the car paint first. We'll slot that in, and basically what's going on is the index of refraction is working on everything. And so we don't want to use an actual IOR number. I mean, you can, you can just adjust this and it'll do its own thing. But for our purposes, and let's actually turn off perpendicular color for now. We're going to turn off the index of refraction and use a curve fall off. And so as you adjust this, it lets you adjust the fall off on the object. So let's, I don't know, let's try 3. And let's actually use the perpendicular color also, same thing. And so now that we're feeding our ramp that's remapped into our fernell perpendicular and facing color, and you could use a different ramp if you want on the perpendicular or facing, it has the options of doing one or the other. And let's actually increase our saturation again. That's a little too much. Let's drop that down a tad. That's cool right there. And so with this, we can adjust how the fall off is working. And like I said, you could use IOR, but for my purposes, I'm not going to bother with it. So let's try 3, 5, 8.1. Let's see. Let's get rid of facing. Let's see what we get. Turn that off. And let's rotate around. Let's crop it also so it loads up a little faster. Yeah, so you see you're getting the same effect basically as you rotate around. Your influence changes depending on your viewing angle. And so let's try 2. Whoa, that's too much. Yeah, 0.1 looks pretty good. Okay, we'll stick to 0.1. And so now, same thing, for the bubbles. We'll feed it into there. And so let's put the color into the coat transmittance and the refraction transmittance. And again, our bubbles are now using the new settings. So saturate it a little bit more. It's a little too desaturated. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And let's drop the fall off just a little bit to 0.2, 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 is nice. So let's get our angle similar. And so that's the difference, basically. The Fresnel effect works differently than the Samplerinfo node, and so the effects won't be the same. But like I said, I prefer the Samplerinfo. I think it looks better. So let's do a final render. And but technically, the Fresnel node is more physically accurate, I guess, compared to the Samplerinfo. And this node is in all the apps, so if you don't have something similar to this in, I don't know, Cinema or whatever you're using, then this is always an option. And so, and it gets the effect across. And so here we go again. We've got our iridescence going on. And, you know, like I said, I personally prefer this iridescence. It's a little stronger, a little shinier, more saturated, but maybe, you know, I'm sure if I adjust the color and stuff like that, or, you know, tweak things a little bit. So let's see if I bring this up, try an IPR, save that out. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to get it looking good. And so yeah, there we go. If we increase the facing color strength, might be a little too much. Well, let's see, compared to the, oh yeah, I guess something like this. So this brings that white back into it. And so let's do a final render. And 1-to-1 the images, and check out our results. And so this is basically the two nodes you can do it, and you could use the curvature node even instead of the Fresnel node, and you know, get some really weird funky effects where the iridescence is only happening on, you know, convex or concave surfaces, like I explained in the curvature node tutorial. And so again, let's check this out. This is using the Fresnel node. Let's get rid of this one. And this is using the Samplerinfo. And so technically the Fresnel node is more physically accurate because it's working with the actual Fresnel values. Samplerinfo is more just a camera direct, but you know, it gives you it has a different look. I prefer the look of this one, even though it's not technically accurate. And again, the setup is really simple. You know, you just make your ramp, remap value, and feed it into a Fresnel, or you put the Samplerinfo into the ramp first if you're using the Samplerinfo, and then you feed it out to your car paint clear coat color or your Redshift material clear coat transmission or transmittance, and you know, tweak it. And that's about it. That covers the iridescence.